Could you talk about the different forms of practice?
Well, there are many planes of consciousness. We have the ancient chakra system. That's a good scale for people to use. You know, lower chakras and middle chakra and higher chakras. And speaking more generally about that, like we have different centers, psychic centers, basically psychic centers. So it's not exactly an invented system. You know, cooked up, you know, and made to be something that it isn't. No, this is part of the inner worlds, the psychic planes of consciousness, that some people are more, let's say, experiencing and more actively engaged in these realities that are non-physical realities. So, to be able to say, well, what about these things that spin, these, you know, vortexes? What about that? I'm feeling the in and outflow of these streams here and up here and above the head. And when I was young, I would feel like there was a helicopter above my head. Always a helicopter above my head. And this kind of spinning current and vortex. I was looking up, trying to figure out where it was. There was light disappearing, you know, but it was showing up as rotation, you know, and so on. And not having any basis for understanding that. You know, relative to the ascending and descending forces of the Kundalini, didn't really have any knowledge of that exactly. So we're talking about different kinds of practice. People are subject to different kinds of practice already. You're being practiced. You're being meditated upon. So, you're being awakened, as it is. Even beyond yourself, you're being awakened. So you're brought into something else. So, as, let's say, certain other forces or other levels of reality demand, that are not seeable or comprehensible. But after all, it is incomprehensible. We are the incomprehensible. So the different forms of practice that you can do, that it does on you. And there are many who feel that they're brought to yoga spontaneously, and hello, that's how it should be. That's what it is. You don't just have to go down to the neighborhood yoga parlor and find something there, particularly that, you know, everybody's already a part of under other relative conditions. Yeah. So you can have these kriyas, these undoings, unfurlings, let's say, these releases, these awakenings, expansions. We can have that, spontaneously occur of themselves. Or you can go and work and bring yourself up to a point where, after a degree of practice and pressure building, you experience these things for yourself in a systemic way, according to your system. Whether it's yoga practice, in my case it was Kundalini yoga for a moment, back in the days. Intense huff and puff yoga, I used to call it, very intense, you know, Kundalini practice.
So, as a child, did you create your own practice?
No, I was practiced. Yeah. When I played drums as a child, I was brought to experience the vortex. See, the ascension. What I'm saying may be very common to many other people, so I'm saying this not out of pride or any kind of exclusive anything. I'm saying this is native experience. So, when I say many people will be able to affirm for themselves. If the sound, current, it's not about entertainment. It's about getting forces, spiraling forces going on inside of the human being that are part of their ascension of consciousness. See? Not that you want it or like it, but these forces, electromagnetic forces, are what enable you to exist. Forces above the head, beneath the body, and so on and so forth, as part of this matrix of cosmic energy. We haven't scratched the surface as scientists really comprehending properly. So we're still looking outside, so we don't know. Okay? We're hoping to find an answer written in the stars somewhere. It's not out there. So we're hoping through microscopic sort of atomic research and investigation and analysis and, you know, penetrating the atom, subterranean, you know, subatomic levels of reality. We expecting to find surprises or something startling or something divine. It's everywhere. It's already happened. It's already after the fact, and it's already gone at the same time.
So people who are, let's say, practiced, can that be going on without even recognizing it or being aware of it?
It can, because your breathing is regulated by thoughts, I don't mean created, but certainly regulated by thoughts. Things you see and read affect your breathing. So you're being forced to experience pranayamic, let's say, reality. That means breath-controlled phenomena relative to your brain actions, the way your body functions, so on and so forth. When you get angry, you have a different kind of breathing, and body movement, tension, whatever. When you're completely relaxed and maybe happy, it's a very different state. It's more expansive, more self-releasing, and so on. So we're talking about being used by experience, and that's karma. Going back to your ancestry, what you're living and outliving relative to the beginnings and endings of past karmic debts is part of this process, and looking into that. Who, in terms of the great-great-great-great-grandfathers, had a debt that was outstanding that wound up in your lap, wound up in your dreams, wound up in your nightmares, wound up in your aspirations, wound up in your visions, wound up in your hopes and wishes. And that may have had a catastrophic impact upon your realization in the moment, or things that happen to you in the moment, whether that's disastrous or ecstatic. See? There's too much to think about, of course, but it's all cyclic. And there's nothing unique about that. Like the time wave or theories or whatever. No, there's no mystery here, peeps. The natives know all of that. The intuitives know that and more. See? Their minds expand. See? Because they're willing to be the universe, and so they're willing to be informed of the nature of the universe as paradox and as complexity and as magnificence. See? Creative, spontaneous intelligence, which everyone is, but relative to our function out here, and maybe our conditions, karmic conditions, or family programs, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. Not all exactly the same thing, but whatever your differences are, you have to deal with them. Hope to expand beyond them, if you can. We're talking fears, you want to recognize fears as potential limitations. They are very enlightening at the same time. So you see them as a kind of dual mode reality. I don't mean dualistic, but a dual mode. I mean, it's going backwards and going forwards at the same time. Everything is forward, potential, and backwards centered.
So is our practice determined by our river of blood?
There are practices that, you're being practiced by your river of blood. Your emotions are controlled or determined by that. It's not a person doing it. It's just the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you do things. It's like the father, it's like the grandfather, and those who have a broader sense of the reality of who the peeps are, the species is, or whatever the karma is of the race, or whatever it is. Then they can see it manifesting. We're talking about science and genealogy, so evolution. We're talking about evolution of species. So we can see that to a certain degree. We're talking about the evolution of the universe, which is also the evolution of the species, because we're just a particle in some greater body. A particle. Our universe is a particle in a larger body. So that means there's a lot of wiggle room here, a lot of moving, a lot to yet embrace in terms of cosmic intelligence and whatever the God is, the God force, factor, or point is of all of this, say, in a spiritual sense.
So if we choose a practice, we may choose one that works for us or not.
Depends on what you're practicing for.
How
You
about
got practices that help you adjust time practices. The before, I was using in a reference a couple of days ago, is the before to the after. And it's like the before-after. See, understanding the script of the before to properly understand what the after is. See, so you have cause and effect, the before and after. That kind of ness, the before and afterness of life, in our script, see? And that means our experience, our situation, scripted. That means already formally agreed upon and validated and reinforced. And is thus subject to opposing or contradictory forces. See, to dissolve it. See, so sometimes death stops a whole cycle of evolutionary creation because one person goes. A lot goes with that one person, and then a lot stops and has to be reborn again, so to speak, or reinvigorated to sustain life, keep moving forward. See? So it depends on how powerful that one being was who passes. That determines to what degree the consequences are of such a disappearance or absence, in a manner of speaking. And in terms of suffering, human suffering, yes, losses and gains are what make people feel better or worse. But you can feel very great, happy about your losses, and maybe depressed about your gains. You might be a candidate for enlightened, crazy wisdom. I have too much. I'm depressed. Doc, please help me. I got a problem here. I have too much to know what to do with. I'm depressed. Too much. Or then you have the reverse, like the fool. I have nothing, zero, and I'm happy as hell because I have nothing. See? And because we're talking about the happy fool, we're talking about someone with a certain sense of reality and resonance and sympathetic presence with other beings. It's happy to help out.
So is the nature of the practice more important, or the nature of the being?
Well, the being is what determines to what degree the practice is showing up as anything. Okay? Then you don't even know it's a practice, because breathing is a practice, right? It's pranayama. But because you're breathing doesn't mean you're a pranayama yogi per se, because everybody's that. Because you're breathing, there's something going on there that is true to the pranayama yogis. But that's because they have made a science of it, whereas you're just doing it by chance. See? As a matter of fact, because you have to get till tomorrow. You have to get to tomorrow and the days after that. So you're busy trying to accomplish your goals, right? Your material goals, and survive in the material world, no doubt. And so you have to be there. You have to breathe to that. See? Whereas the pranayama yogi is breathing beyond that, particularly, to see what else, not only in terms of the time thing that you might be preoccupied with necessarily, but what the spatial considerations could be relative to expanding your space through breath. Extending your breath, maybe extending your life, maybe enhancing your life somehow by extending your breath, because maybe it is true when certain schools say you only have so many breaths, so you want to take your time exhausting them. That'll change your breathing. That's already altered your sense of breathing. It already brought you to another level of yoga. Come on.
So are we attempting to learn from practice or just live practice?
Oh, you're learning from practice all the time. You're learning from life. There's no end to learning. So that's why I say, well, what is there to learn? Whether you like it or not, the flux is continuum. There's a continuum here. So coming in through all the senses, all wired to the continuum, going out everywhere. We can't see it. See? But we are astral beings, so we're starlight beings. But because you can't see it or people don't see it, doesn't mean it's not the case. See, so the more, let's say, advanced the technology becomes, where you can actually see people's thoughts in space, when that becomes more the case, and we see where we've always been at. We are the etheric space, we just don't see it because we don't have technology to perceive it, but the psychics have always known that that's the only way anybody can know anything. And that's the only way we can all be connected as one, is to have the etheric body of the universe. And it is body, and it's a living body, so it's a fluidic body.
So are we able to, let's say, take our existing life and conditions and make a practice from it?
Make practice from it? That's up to you. You can do what you want. You can waste it, or you can explore it. See? It can be an adventure, or it can be a death wish. Depends on what your karma is. That is to say, what the conditions are of your life. Enable you not so much to make up a choice in your life, but to continue to flow the momentum of what it is that your life stream is about. See? Maybe what your purpose is, what your mission is. It may be ahead of you. It may be behind you, and it may be upon you at the same time, or maybe at some point it becomes obvious that it was always with you. And you take it from there. See?